first up, I have my leftover chicken noodle soup. Now, I'm sure that you've all got that sort of leftover chicken, you know, from the night before that's kicking around in the bag. You've picked it up from the local roast chicken shop. And if it's anything like my kids, they leave half the meat off the bone. So I've shredded that and I've picked the leftovers, and that's going to go into my soup at the end. So we've got a beautiful chicken noodle soup. But with the bones, right, I'm just going to very quickly and easily, nice big heavy knife, just chop them up. Yeah, they can be random small pieces, right? They could be big bones like your thigh bone and your wing bone there. And then I'm just going to break through the carcass. Just cutting that into sort of, you know, big sort of pieces, 6, 8, yeah, just rounded pieces. There's still some herbs left over from there as well too. They're all good to go in there. So basically I'm making a roasted chicken stock. Now you can add water to that, or chicken stock if you've got some, you know, kicking around in the cupboard, or just a little bit of both. But I've got some beautiful chicken stock, and I'm just going to put that on top of my chicken bone. So basically it's a double chicken stock for me, but it's fine just to use water if you haven't got any chicken stock as well too. Now just cover the bones with the stock or the water, and then I'm going to add my vegetables in stages, okay? Because things take different amount of times to cook. The potato's going to go in first because that takes a long time to cook, maybe 10, 15 minutes, whereas the carrots and the celery probably 5, 8, 10 minutes. Right, now I've turned that on to a high heat. You can cook this anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes to really low and slow for 2 to 3 hours. Right, I've got some fresh thyme, right, so a little sprig of thyme goes in there. There's a couple of bay leaves, yeah, fresh or dried is fine. And then 2 cloves of garlic, yeah, crushed with your finger. Now just a nice dice for the onion. Now I'm just cutting the onion into a large brunoise, but just nice big squares, nice big cubes, and just watch your fingers. Right, the onion goes in. Yeah, onions are bigger than carrots or potatoes, it depends on what size, so just use your brain a little bit. Now the wonderful thing about this recipe, any sort of vegetables that you'd like in your chicken noodle soup, yeah, feel free to try. Now you can see that my stock has come to the boil. I'm just going to turn that down now, and I'm going to give it like a little bit of a skim. Now, skimming's just getting rid of all the set proteins, all the crud and the, you know, the nasty stuff left on top. All right, so just give that a little bit of a skim, and then just gently simmer your chicken stock, okay? 30 or 40 minutes. I'm going to add a few butter mushrooms now as well too. Then just a little pinch of pepper, a little pinch of salt, and just quarter your mushrooms. I don't slice them. Now my chicken soup's been, you know, simmering away, bubbling away for about 30 or 40 minutes. So I'm almost ready to add the pasta, but first I just get rid of most of the big bones, okay? I chop them nice and big. Now I'm not gonna pass this stock. Now I'm gonna add my pasta, okay? Now I've got a beautiful little dried macaroni here because that's what was kicking around in the back of my cupboard. And just 2 nice handfuls of that, you know, 150, 200 grams. You get those in and stir it so the starch is going to thicken the soup. As that comes out of the pasta, it's going to make a beautiful, unctuous chicken noodle soup. Right, I cooked that 8, 10, 12 minutes. Now I'm almost ready to finish this off. So I've got some greens here. I just had some bok choy in the fridge and a little bit of broccolini. I'm going to chop them up. I cook them only 30 seconds a minute, right? I always have my greens at the end so they stay vibrant, they stay alive, okay? I like a really soft cooked potato, my celery nice and chewy, right? But this is just gonna go in at the end. In goes the bok choy. Give that a little bit of a stir. You can see we've got all those beautiful macaronis there. They're falling off the spoon. Right, again, yeah, just chop the sort of broccolini into nice big bits. If you had some cauliflower, you could use that, some broccoli. You know, if there was a bit of cabbage kicking around, you could have that too. Yeah, finally slice the stalks of the broccolini. Yeah, they go in. A good stir. And then I'm going to add my shredded chicken meat. Right, that goes in. You bring that back to the boil, and I'm pretty much ready to serve. Now, at this stage, it's very important to taste the soup and just check it. Yeah, but might need a little pinch of salt or a little pinch of pepper. It needs a little pinch of salt to finish. And now I'm ready to eat. Now I can smell all those wonderful herbs, the beautiful vegetables. Look at that. Really rustic, really tasty. Great when I'm feeling a little bit down, a little bit blue. Look, I just picked the bay leaves off to the side, that's all right. It's a simple soup, right? It's meant to have bits of it. Yeah, bits of thyme in there, yeah, bits of herbs, like a couple of bones. Just be careful when you're eating it though, of course. Nice big portion. All that, all the beautiful vibrant greens on top. Right, and to finish, just a little bit of chopped parsley because that was kicking around in the fridge, but you could use tarragon, you could use thyme, you could use chives, sprinkle of that, really good olive oil if you have it. Don't always finish everything I cook with a little sprinkle of salt just in case. Now that's my leftover chicken noodle soup. Simple and easy to cook. All right, I'm going to enjoy it. Yeah, just like you should at home, so I look forward to seeing you next time.
Here, I have 250 grams of pork shoulder, which I've diced and tenderized with the back of my knife. Feel free to substitute with fish, chicken, paneer, and even tofu. And I've actually made this dish with cauliflower as well. So first, we're gonna marinate with a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of sesame oil. I'm gonna crack 1 egg on top, and 1 tablespoon of potato starch. So normally, I would let this marinate for about 30 minutes to an hour, even the night ahead if you have time. But for today, since we're cooking at home, I'm just gonna let this sit. Trust me, with this sauce, this is gonna taste just as good. Okay, so we'll give this a quick mix. So I've actually got my oil in the pan already. Get it nice and hot. You want it around 160 degrees or so. We're gonna coat it with tapioca starch, about 250 grams, and about 100 grams of rice flour. You're gonna coat this pretty heavily, and it will seem like there's a little excess in the starch and the rice flour, but we're gonna dust it off before you drop it into our fryer. We want a nice even coat because you want this to get nice and crispy, but you also want the juice to stay inside. You want this moist. You don't want this to dry out as you're cooking it. So as you can see, we've got a nice even coat, and we're gonna drop this in our fryer. And the trick is to make sure that all your sweet and sour pork is cut the same size. And even if you're doing it with chicken, if you're doing it with tofu, paneer, cauliflower, you want it all the same size so you don't get uneven cooking. And this is gonna be our double fry. So we're actually frying this once at 160 just to get it cooked and to seal in that nice moist juice. We're gonna remove it, and right before we serve it, we're actually gonna fry it again at 190. This is also a good tip to remember. If you're actually doing a dinner for your friends or family, you can do this ahead of time and actually do it a day ahead. While this is frying, we're actually gonna start our sauce now. So in a pot next to it, we're gonna put 100 grams of tomatoes, 100 grams of sliced onions, 250 ml of ketchup or any tomato product that you have lying around, half a cup of brown sugar. We're gonna add 100 ml of white vinegar and 50 grams of honey just to balance it out. This is a quick, simple version of your standard sweet and sour sauce that you would find at most Cantonese style restaurants. I've modified it so that it'll taste pretty similar and cook super similar, and it's just much easier than in a restaurant setting. So while our sauce is simmering away, the pork has been frying at 160 for about 3 to 4 minutes. You can see now that it's formed a nice, beautiful crust. To lock those juices inside, we're gonna set it aside on paper towel just to give it a time to rest. And what's happening now is because when you're frying the pork, the juices are really active and running around. You wanna give it a chance to calm down so that it stays nice and juicy for you. Okay, so we'll take this out. And generally you wanna let it rest for about 5 to 10 minutes before you do the second fry. Our sauce is bubbling away. The whole place smells of that sweet, sour, very familiar flavor. Brings me straight back to my dad's restaurants. When I was first a line cook on his restaurant, I remember constantly burning the sauce, and he would constantly yell and scream and kick at me. but this was one of my favorite dishes to make because after that, I never forgot how to make it again. So I've actually cranked up the heat on our oil. The oil is gonna get nice and hot now. We're gonna keep it at 190 for our second fry. While that's heating up, in a separate wok, I'm gonna add half a tablespoon of fresh oil, and now I'm gonna add our aromats. I have some dry chilies, diced onions, sliced garlic, and some diced peppers. Okay, while that's sizzling away, my oil is nice and hot now. I'm gonna actually put the pork back into the oil for the second fry. And if you were doing this with chicken, prawns, cauliflower, paneer, broccoli, I would still do this the double fry. What happens is this second fry at the higher heat seals those juices in and gets a nice crunchy texture with it. Okay, this is nice and hot now. I'm gonna put it back in. So this second fry, we only want it in there for maybe 45 seconds to a minute. We don't want to overcook it, we don't want to burn it, we just want to get that crunch back. Okay, that's back in. Sauce is nicely reduced. I'm actually going to add the sauce into the pan now. Look at that. We've added our sauce to the wok now. All the flavors are going into the sauce. Our pork has been back in the fryer for about 45 seconds, nice and crispy, ready to go back in. And you gotta move quick so that you don't lose that nice crunchy texture that you've been working for. This is a simple, quick recipe that you can do restaurant-style food at home. We're gonna give this one last toss, just so it's nice and evenly coated. We want that reduced. We want it to glaze every single piece. We have some fresh cut pineapple that we're gonna toss in. It's pineapple, guys, so it doesn't have to be cooked. We just want it warm through so that freshness goes into the dish. The pineapple's heated through. The sauce has reduced down to a nice glaze. We got a nice even coat on our pork, and we're ready to plate, guys. All right, guys, I can't wait for you to make this. Crunchy, a little bit spicy, sweet, sour, it's got all the flavors. This is 10-minute kitchen. Make this dish tonight.
So I've got some coconut cream here. I need about 400 mils of that. So into a measuring jug, and pour that in. And that goes into a high-speed blender. Pour that all in. Now this recipe only requires 3 ingredients. So coconut cream, some rice malt syrup, or you can use any kind of sugar syrup, maple syrup, honey even, and frozen mangoes. If you can get fresh mangoes, that's even better. So I'm gonna put a tablespoon of some rice malt syrup into the blender. So pop the lid on and then we're just gonna blitz that. Okay, so that's the sort of mixture that you get. It's just blended, it's quite thin and loose, and we're just gonna pour that into a lined baking tray. All right, so that's it, and that's just gonna go into the freezer for about 20 minutes or so until it's semi-frozen. Okay, so the second part of this is the upper layer, which is the mango, sort of like a sorbet, which we're gonna blitz up using some frozen mangoes. I've got about 500 grams here, so that's a whole bag of frozen mangoes. Now, you don't have to use mangoes. You can be as creative as you want. You can use frozen berries, raspberries, blueberries, strawberries, whatever you can find in the supermarket or whatever's available in your freezer. Pineapple's another good one. It really is up to you. Also, just for a little bit of sweetness, I'm just gonna add in a tablespoon of rice malt syrup. Now, once again, you can use different sweetness. You can just use sugar, make a sugar syrup with some water. So just melt down some sugar and water together. You can even use honey or maple syrup. But I find rice malt syrup quite neutral, and it's an easy one. Perfect, so now the lid goes on, And I'm just gonna blitz that on high. That's the sort of consistency that you want. It's sort of like a slushy, smoothie kind of consistency, and I'll use the spatula. That's pretty much what you want. So it's not too wet, but it's still, it's really silky smooth, and it's pretty much like a sorbet. If you find that it's a little bit too thick, just add about a tablespoon or two of water into your mixture, and that will help get it going and the blender going as well. All right, so now this will go on top of the coconut cream. So just pour it all over. I think this is a really good healthy snack for your kids to have, you know, even at home. It's just a little treat. It's all natural stuff, using, you know, coconut milk and mangoes. And it's all just natural sweeteners. We've only added a little bit of rice malt syrup in there. Okay, so you just want to be gentle with this part and just sort of run your spatula across the top, just to make an even layer. So that's pretty even to me. Now the sides are looking a little bit rustic, but it's always a little bit harder to get the clean edges, but you know what? It's homely and it will still taste delicious. So now that's gonna go back into the freezer for about 20 minutes or until it's frozen. You can leave it in there for as long as you want, and then we'll cut it up later. Right, so that's been in the freezer all day. I've gone out, run my errands, so I am looking forward to tucking into my little treat. So I'm gonna pop it out, give it a good knock onto another chopping board. There we go. That looks good. Now, don't forget to take off the baking paper. That should come off quite easily. So I'm going to chop it up into rectangle pieces so that you can have it like a bar. There we go. Chop that up. And then clean edges. So I'm going to cut that right down. Remove that bit. And on this side. And then cut it right down the middle. Beautiful. Okay, just gonna flip that over. Okay, and that's it. Now we're ready to tuck in and plate up and give everyone a treat. I'm gonna cut out some baking paper, just so it's easier to hold. And I think it's a really cute way. It's kind of nostalgic. It sort of reminds me of back in the day on Orchard Road in Singapore. They serve these ice cream sandwiches and these little ice cream bars that you get. Okay, and there we go. Mini coconut and mango bars. Delicious. Tastes like summer. That's another great recipe from 10 Minute Kitchen. I hope you guys do this one. Tag me in all your posts, and I'll see you soon.